Well, welcome to the February 14th Valentine's Day meeting of the Finance Committee. We will follow the agenda as posted. We do not have a recording secretary tonight.
You do now.
Oh, good, thank you.
I love this job. Increase
So,
my stipend.
Without having the minutes here, we'll forego that and ask our first guest, or guest and mini guest from BVT to come before us.
Thanks very much. Put together a little summary, be helpful.
Can I get your name again?
It's Anthony Steele.
Steele?
Correct.
I'm doing it.
Oh, okay.
And I know who he is.
Even better.
I'm just writing down good-looking guy.
So I'm joined this evening by my Assistant Superintendent, Anthony Steele, okay, and also our treasurer, who's also your treasurer. All right, so and we're pleased to have both. So that, first of all, thank you for the professionalism that the Finance Committee has extended to me and to Blackstone Valley Tech for 31 years. It's a great pleasure to interact with professionals. And a special thank you also to the town and the Finance Committee's support of the additional money for the grease traps, which also are part of our culinary arts program. So the grease traps will be completed over the next vacation just coming up, and then we will handle that reimbursement, but it's appreciated. So at this point, our school committee has not finalized its budget, but it's not uncommon to be asked for preliminary numbers or estimates, and we're fully prepared to do that. And I'll walk through the document that I just gave out. The state has provided, as you well know, the preliminary numbers, or the House 1, the governor's numbers. The general feeling is that they won't be enhanced a great deal because of the state's finances. So we're planning on living with the revenue pictures that are in the state budget, and frankly have been able to produce a very conservative budget that includes a reduction in the assessment versus last year for the town of Milford. So,
Wait a minute, is this on tape?
so
Bitsy never lies either, too, so you know.
if you allow me, I'll walk
I
you.
want this historic moment.
No, So if just walking your way through the booklet was put together for you. The Budget Subcommittee is a cross-section of school committee members as well as administrative personnel in the system. The next page is a summary, which I've traditionally done as a letter from me indicating the budgetary plan and the way in which it was built. Okay. I'll let you read that at your leisure. The budget for next year has the benefit of a negotiated contract with our teachers for 3 years.
How much longer you get left on FITC?
How many years?
On the contract? Is that a new one?
This is a new contract, started in '24. It's for '25 and '26.
Perfect. So you got
So 25 for the budget.
you got locked in.
That's correct. It's a known number, okay?
Beautiful.
Not an estimate. We also are in the third year of the 5-year transportation contract, which is also nice to know. The health insurance costs are at 4.5%, which is, one of the things we're pleased to share. And we thank, both the Teachers Association and the school committee for negotiating a number of these things and working in, collaboration. We conducted a number of analysis, including energy conservation. We entered into a new partnership with outside solar farms rather than using campus-based square footage to access reductions, in electrical costs. And we have secured, again, at this juncture, about 900,000 in grants, but we're in the running for another 200,000, okay, that we just haven't heard. we look at aggressive grant pursuits and other avenues so that we don't have to go to the assessments all the time. The other sources of money for us have been special petitions to the legislature. We've been pretty successful with that. And also donations from either industry or our graduates. We've pointed out that our vocational technical teachers have been willing to use their trade skills working with our students for any on-campus maintenance work that can be done that's safe for kids to do. We also recognize that in some cases, other vocational technical schools have not been able to establish that relationship with their vocational teachers who have said they were hired to teach, they weren't hired to fix the plumbing or fix the electrical, but we have not had that, okay? And it's been a very cooperative situation, and our principal has established relationships with the union. There have been no grievances again this year, and so the contract was negotiated without legal assistance, and it was settled in, not to give Newton a hard time, but I'm just saying that it was settled in 2 meetings. And so there's a lot of work behind the scenes, which is what you're known for as well. The next page talks about the fact that we have a number of advisory committees that review our budget as we build it. One of those, we have some 400 tradespeople who represent the different 18 vocational technical programs that we offer training, and they meet periodically to look at the programs, look at the practices and other resources, and also look at the budget request to decide whether or not it's something we absolutely need or a nice to need. And so if it shows up as a nice to need, it's probably not making the budget, okay? Whenever we identify something that's needed, we start to look to see if we can acquire it through grants or donations, again, before we go to the town. The next page is some of the articles that have been done relative to the success that the district has earned. We have, our students and staff have made a solid commitment to doing well in anything they do and everything they do. So whether it's trade competencies, portfolios for trades, for scholarship applications, the state MCAS scores, or other scores. It's sad to see that chronic absenteeism is an issue in Medicaid. It is not in our system. Okay, the parents tell us there are 1,260 students in the current enrollment. 160 of those are from Milford, and the parents tell us that generally speaking, their students are eager to go to school rather than hesitant to go to school, and that's because of the instruction being applied, being motivational, and anyone who's had a chance to visit or tour our school will see students who are engaged and focused. And anyone who hasn't had a chance to do that, let me know. We'll be glad to comply with that. I know several of you have toured. The next sheet is a summary of the $886,000 of the grants that have already been confirmed, and that's when I previously made reference to that. But as I pointed it out, there's another $200,000 that's currently under review. The next page is one of the points that we've been trying to focus on or emphasize, what I call an apples and orange kind of thing. There seems to be some misunderstanding by certain individuals across our 13 towns. We serve 13 communities. I think you know that. That includes 13 town managers, 60 select persons, and 126 finance committee members. And those people change. Okay, there are 5 new town administrators. One just named, I think yesterday, for the town of Millbury, one of our member towns. So there's lots of changes.
Sorry to smile, but we complain that managing 15 FinCom members is a task.
That's why you were happy only 8 of us showed up.
Well, we actually like most of the people we work with. So, no, it's, as I said, I started off saying, complimenting you on your professionalism. But so, in any case, what we've tried to do here is simply indicate to somebody who attempts to compare and contrast us with any of the 9 communities that have a local school system, that it's not uncommon that those 9 school systems benefit from the generosity of the municipal side of the contributions for so many expenses. And, we're glad to see that. We only wish to point out that we don't enjoy that. We don't have a town that we can pass our bill on for unemployment or for legal cost or anything else. And so when we present the budget to you and to the other 12 towns, it is all-encompassing. It has all the cost centers in it. So please just be mindful of that for those who haven't. That's not been an issue here, but it has been an issue occasionally. The next sheet is kind of a return on investment. We've been doing 5-year placement studies now and are able to confirm that they are solidly indicating that students are either immediately entering trades or subsequently entering trades or almost consistently using the trade skills to earn additional money to help pay for different bills. Of those who, we had an excellent response to the 5-year placement study. 100% of the students indicated that their education at Valley Tech made a difference. It helped them in different ways. And we're pleased to see that. This year, we have 2 special requests, and I thought we might as well, advance them right here, okay? And taking the advice of the treasurer, we're asking to create on your warrant, okay, for the annual town meeting, a stabilization account. We have one stabilization account for transportation, but we do not have a general stabilization account. We know that you have used that effectively in the past for different things, and we wish to follow your example in that. So we're asking permission to do that. It does require a vote by our towns.
You've never had one?
We have a transportation one.
Well, my point is,
Not this one.
this new one,
Yep.
you never had.
That's correct. We're not asking for any money to be appropriated to go in it. We simply want to
Creation.
have permission to create it for account purposes. It's a fairly common process, but it's not something we've asked.
Signing up for a new savings account.
What's that?
You're signing up for a new savings account.
In a way, yeah. And then we'll try to raise the money to put it in that account.
Yeah.
And the same thing that you have
Where
done.
would the funding come from?
It could come from student fundraising, okay, or other contributions, but it gives us a place to put it. Okay?
Beautiful.
Okay. All right. In addition, okay, the state recently announced from the Mass School Building Authority that it was reopening the accelerated repair opportunity. Okay, it's the applications, as you well know, commonly referred to as a SOI or Statement of Interest, are due March 1st. And so it is our plan to file a statement of interest application with the state for $10 million, okay, to fix our roof, which is 34 years of age, okay, that section of the roof. We have fixed our sections of the roof previously that were less costly and then applied for reimbursement and received reimbursement. But this one is, we have 60,000 square feet that we can't fund, using our resources, and so we'll be asking permission to borrow. Okay, so we'll be prepared to provide more information. The regional agreement that Milford came into play with the other 12 towns 65 years ago specifies that bonds or debt is paid according to a 3-year average of your student enrollments. Milford's is 12.1%. So once we finalized the schedules for the bond, then we would be asking Milford to support 12.1% of that.
How does the roof compare to the Milford High roof? Do you have any idea? Square footage-wise?
Well, our building is 300,000 square feet, okay? But 60,000 square feet is this project. I'm not as familiar with somebody else's roof.
No, I was just curious, Michael, because we spent $5
Many
million
years.
doing the Milford High roof
Right,
10 years ago.
right.
Years.
Well, we have estimates that make us comfortable, okay, in identifying 10 million. Also, it's always been our practice to be conservative in our request, okay? We're glad to see 5 vocational technical schools, including one just down the road in Franklin, were successful in their public securing $300 million expansions. But we've chosen not to do that, okay?
Thank you.
No, okay. Well, no, we serve 13 towns, and not all, have the financial resources of Milford, but we recognize what's reasonable, what's conservative, and what we hope is to be achievable. We also want to protect the investment that the towns have made. Okay, there's millions of dollars worth of technology underneath the roof, and so if we will make application with the Mass School Building Authority with the hope of receiving as much as 50%. That might be a bit optimistic, but whatever money is received will be used as a buy down on the debt, which will further reduce that debt. We're not asking any of the debt to kick in until FY26. As far as advance notice, you may recall that a year ago when I made the budget presentation, in my documentation and my presentation, I alerted all 13 towns that said, please anticipate that there'll be a request for a bond, at least recommended by the superintendent to the school committee. So it was just an advance alert so people couldn't say you caught us off guard. Now we're closer to finalizing that. It is not yet voted, but it's expected to be voted tomorrow night. Okay. All of this is done to make sure we can protect our towns and not miss the window of March 1st with the state authority. So
you're talking about somewhere around 1 to 1.2 million Milford share.
the 12%, that's,
Yeah. Depending on, if that's based off the 10 million that comes in, if
Well,
we
no,
get
I mean-
no reimbursements,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm thinking worst case,
worst case,
we're on the hook for 1.2 million.
Yes.
yep.
over the 20 years.
Well,
Well,
So-
no, over 20 years it'll be more, but
Nope.
no.
Well,
Yes and no. So, Chris, you're asking how many years the bond's going to be. Worst case scenario, if we get no reimbursement from MSBA, no bond premium, the authorization is going to be for 10 million. We'll have to take out the full 10 million. If we're going to have to take out the full 10 million, we're looking between a 20 and a 30-year bond.
That's fine.
On the 30-year bond, the repay on that is about 17.5 million. On the 20, it's 14.5 million. So we're looking at that. If we can get this half the project covered by MSBA, we can go down to almost a 15-year bond, even a little less. What we're trying, we'll run all the numbers with the different scenarios, but until we know the MSBA number, we're not going to put a hard number on the length of the bond.
I think the most important thing is, I don't remember a capital request coming from BVT.
we have not done that. We've relied upon state grant subsidies, okay, or things or donations.
What I'm saying, Michael, is you haven't come for any building improvements, and at least, I can't remember how many.
20 years ago.
I was to say, I started 20 years ago.
I think it might be it's before me, so yeah.
That's correct. 20 years ago I did, but
Right,
not since then.
Our current bond is done this year.
Yeah.
So FY25 is actually, there's no,
But the fact that there's MSBA possible backup on us, worst case scenario, we're looking at a 20-year bond, if not a 10, with MSBA backup.
20 years of operations and only $1 million ask for capital.
We're on the
I'll
same
take that all
page.
day
That's
long.
my point, is I'm in complete agreement.
Yeah, that's a message I'd like to take to 12 other locations. So
Let's see, I'll come out. Come out to Hopedale. I'll come out to your other towns if you...
I'll be there too. We'll be sharing this in Hopedale, and Hopedale, which has a 2 to 3% ownership. Okay, so
How do we report that in terms of the amortization? Do you do like an adjusted per head of what our charge is that's allocated to the town? What is this going to look like? I hear the broad numbers, but I'd like to know what that means in terms of what's the change effectively to the per capita charge that the town is incurring? Because that's really the most important number for us, right?
yeah, so it's going to be fairly similar every year. I mean, as the interest goes down, that debt payment will go down.
Is this equal payments of
Yeah,
principal and
it's going to
interest?
be, no, not interest, it's level principal.
Level principal.
And then as the bond gets later in its life, the interest will become less and less.
Have you run these numbers and what this means to us per student per year?
Not yet, because we just got.
If you do, if I could just.
Yeah, so we just got the numbers, the 10 and the 20 and the 30 year based off the 10 million yesterday, and we had our capital meeting today, so we didn't really put anything together yet. and it's still not voted on by the school committee, so we don't want to release anything until tomorrow, until it's
Chris,
voted on
is it
tomorrow.
safe to say, round numbers, 140 grand a year?
So,
Less,
so
yeah.
right now, if we had to go to a 30-year off the 10 million, the first year debt payment would be 900,000. So Milford would be responsible for 12.1 or 12.2, whatever the percentage is on the 900,000. If we were to do the 20-year, it would be 835,000. So,
So we are talking about 100 grand increase to our expense.
And we have 160 kids there, so the per capita hit is like 700 person or something like that.
it's probably less than that.
Yeah,
Probably less, but Andy, it's 100 grandish,
around.
around 100 grandish.
Yeah.
And that's assuming you get no funding.
That's exactly right. Which is not going to happen because Fitzy's on the job.
Well, we're going to get something, but that just, I like to just have an idea.
And Andy, when this new one starts, so our current debt is finalizing this fiscal year. So FY '25, there's actually no debt payment, and then our goal is to have this start FY '26.
So it's not a brand-new debt, we're already absorbing some debt now that's falling off for a year or two, and then
Yeah.
we'll be,
Right.
okay.
So it won't even be a next fiscal year then? You're talking about 26.
26, there's,
Okay.
No, it's going to hit right when Milford High School hits.
We need a high school?
Yeah.
FY '26 is the goal. FY '25, at this point, would be somewhat unachievable, I believe.
Yeah, also, we don't expect that MSBA will move that quickly. Okay? I hope we've answered your question, Andy. The key factor here is that the principal's paid consistently, okay, which reduces the overall interest expense. But I'll look at the next sheet, because it might help with some of your questions here. In summary, although the budget for FY '25 has not been voted by the school committee, but they've been working on it for months, is that we're asking the town for $20,014 fewer than the year before. So we're in an, as Al said, what a tough sell that is. So
As long as it's the same number of kids.
it's one more kid. It's,
No, plus it's
160.
better, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, I don't want to get excited about a lower contribution if we have less kids.
Yeah, you don't have less. Okay. So there's 160 students served. The per pupil assessment translate to 10,026, which actually is a point of contention in some of the other towns when I go present there. But that's based on the state's manner of looking at Milford and the population that's served. The Commonwealth alerted you, and I'm sure you didn't miss this, that the absolute minimum obligation of Milford to its vocational technical school was an increase of $44,362. But we were able to absolve that, or, include it in the total assessment, so we didn't have to ask that, which results in the reduction of the $20,000. The debt, the last payment, as the treasurer mentioned, okay, for Milford is $44,227, which gives you a barometer or a reference point in the sense of the future debt, which obviously is.
But now, Chris, if I'm understanding this right, and I don't mean to ignore you, but he's the man with the money. We're paying our share of 45, say 50 grand round numbers now. We're going to skip a year, hooray, and then we're going to go to 100-ish grand. So the real net effect of what we feel to put up the roof is 50 grand a year. Is that?
Give or take.
Yeah, about,
Within hand grenade.
Worst case, worst case would be.
So
The delta.
again, feeling better and better. David?
I just want to hit on something, what you just said about the population that we serve. I am curious about the 160 students that you have. What is their profile makeup? Is it comparative to Milford, or, because I guess I have my notes here, but I hear it's harder to get into BBT now. And I'm just curious of what your standards are for accepting, might be the wrong word, of having someone come to your school, just based on, I'm thinking of maybe you can work with us to ease our burden as well, and I don't know if that's going on now or not.
Yeah, there's an aggressive attempt by us to make significant changes in admissions, so we do our best to mirror the community. Because we don't serve just Milford, we have 12 other towns.
No,
but-
I'm just focused on the 160, but yeah.
No, I understand. So that, and the data that we've collected that's being monitored by the state shows that we're making progress in serving the so-called target populations, okay? For example, African American is one of the categories that the state's looking at closely, not only that one. And so we can show, and the state has confirmed, that we have had greater luck in recruiting students who want to pursue a trade that hit the targeted populations, which is closer to Milford. Milford's a bit different, of course, than the other 12 towns. So the partnership is with all 13. Right, so no one town controls, the admissions process, but there's also been a whole series of special efforts extended to Milford, given its population, okay, in the sense of multiple languages, interpreters for interviews, additional presentations for Milford students. So there's been outreach, okay, and we can see some of the changes that have taken place.
I just think it's important that, that the school mimics or mirrors some population that we have, especially in the trade, because most of these students that are in high needs or English as a second language is probably going into a trade. I think that it would be benefit to them and also benefit to our population as well.
Yeah, I can tell you that we're making a special effort you pointed out one of the other target populations, English as a second language, okay, to increase the number of students who feel comfortable. We are seeing increases in those categories, okay? So it's gradual process, but we're both working on that.
We don't have the numbers now for the 160. We don't know what that entails now. I'm just curious.
No, I'm saying we could examine it. Generally speaking, it's once the 160 students become part of our 1,260 population, it becomes our school, our family. Nobody's walking around with an M or an H or as if it's town. We encourage students, and I have family members who have come from Milford. Okay, I came from Milford. Okay, to blend in, to maintain their friendships at home in Milford, but make new friends at Valley Tech. But we want people not to feel different or.
Yeah, I think what Dave's driving at is, whenever we have school committee meetings, there's certain things that get ticked off, special ed, English as a second language, economically disadvantaged. So I think what Dave is asking for is if you have any of that parallel data to what we would typically see from the public schools.
Yeah, we do have that. For example, there's 180 students with special needs of the 1,260. We do that. I thought you were focusing on the 160. Sorry. Okay.
Well, no, right. No, I'm just trying to focus on the student body and what the makeup is.
We do. One of the things we've asked is that we have a high school-only population, so it's not a K through 12 population,
right,
which is difficult. It's another apples and oranges kind of situation. And so,
Michael, you mentioned trades. Do you know, or gut feel, or anything, just out of the, what do you graduate, 350 a year?
not quite that many, but
Say 300 a year.
Yeah.
How many go to college and how many go into trades?
Well, the majority go to college now and then go into the trades, okay? So that the trades oftentimes encourage the student and recruit the student to enter their employment by saying, we'll subsidize the cost of going to college. And so it's a little like the military when I grew up there, in the sense of Finney's experiences, that the industry is encouraging and motivating students to link with them and offering subsidies for college as a recruiting tool to join the trades. Right? That's one of the things that happen. At the moment, we have 135 seniors that are in cooperative education. So they're reporting to trades every other week right now. So we do everything we can to link these students, and they maintain affiliations, okay, anyone who went to Northeastern University or other internships and cooperative educational experiences. So that's the path that the kids are taking. But it's not one or the other.
The other thing you started explaining to me, but I'll bring it up again. We worry about people like my father. My father came to Milford, had 4 years of elementary school, and that was it. Put him in an organic chemistry class, an academic class. He did not shine. Put a tool in that man's hands, and he was an artist. There's always been the impression that unless you're top 10% of your academic class, you're not getting into BVT.
It's not true.
Well, I think it's important that you explain it because
Yep.
we're worried about our kids, like my dad, who with a tool in his hand, he was unstoppable. But with a pen in his hand in an organic chemistry class, he was a non-starter.
We would recruit people like your dad to make presentations to the construction technology people. Masonry skills and others could be added as, you know, we recently entered into a partnership with Caterpillar, Milton Cat, relative to creating hoisting devices. And we have new equipment that's now been installed in the school as a connection to that industry, okay? Kind of the modern version of your dad's trade experiences. And Milton Cat has been kind enough to gift us significant equipment, okay, for simulation equipment. And the understanding that they can also use that equipment to train some of their staff members or some of their employees, and we agreed to do that without hesitation. So yeah, we recognize that. We value your dad's skill set, and to us, that's a successful placement.
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, I think that question is an absolutely valid question, and it's been a question that's been asked for 12, 15 years. I think if you asked that question 12 years ago, I don't think Fitzy would be able to answer that question with that response. I think that the Valley Tech community has responded to us asking that question over and over and over again and evolved their entrance into their schools to accommodate that. I think they heard the voices, the screaming voices of the towns, and I think that they've done that. And I think, like I said, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, when I was here, I mean, they were screaming that. And to be honest with you, you were stealing the best of the best. And I think that they heard our screaming voices. And I think in the last 12 or 14 years, BVT has evolved and said, you know what? And they've listened to the cries and said, you know what? If that's what the public wants and that's what we should do, they've done it. And that's why the point is, like, maybe 14 years ago, your father wouldn't have got in. He would get in today because they've evolved on what their entrance requirements are and what they're looking to do. So I think that they've moved with the times and they've evolved like all the rest of us have with time. And I don't know, Fitzy, if you disagree or...
Thanks for noticing. We haven't been, cold to those recommendations. We've made changes. When I started, as your vocational technical superintendent 31 years ago, there were 660 students there. Now there are double. Okay, they were empty seats, right? So working with people like Anthony Steele, we've been able to make the school more attractive, more appealing. I don't think anyone expected it to be as appealing as it is today. Okay, it's one of the most popular schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Okay, but we filled empty seats with students, and then we looked to see, are we diversifying? So do we need to revisit? And we heard that, and we respect it, and we do want to mirror the communities. We don't wish to be an academy. We want everybody to succeed and to have unlimited opportunities, okay? And the best ambassador of our school are the graduates, as far as all the different directions in which they can go. And the employers who are telling us they'll take every kid we can generate to them. So.
And your employees. You've got a very loyal employee base.
Well, thank you. We're blessed to work with the people that are dedicated. We know that's not true everywhere. But yes, we do have excellent employees.
Are there any cross-relational programs with like Milford High School?
Not to that, not of, how can I say, not in the form that you're probably thinking, okay? In the sense of, whenever any of the sending schools have asked for assistance in designing career education programs, we gladly provide that, okay? With the there used to be like afternoon programs from where Milford would come over for like 2 hours, but programs of that nature, the students, I mean, you spend more time on the highway than you do in the training, so the kids now are working part-time jobs and playing all kinds of sports and other things. So it's the availability to do that has changed, all right? So, but we're glad to help in any way we can.
You're taking about 40 Milford kids per class.
Okay, 160, sure.
How many apply?
I don't have a number, okay?
Is it-
So-
You accept half, third?
Oh, yeah, no, there's probably going to, across the district, there's probably like a 50-something% acceptance rate. But there's 800 to 900 applications, okay? And it's, but on a per-town basis, okay? And also, some students don't accept the invitation. They've applied because it's almost like applying to 3 colleges, okay? And the parents, they're not going to go to 3 colleges, but, and so,
But 900 apply and you take about 300.
we were actually, the principal's been very flexible in that regard. He's actually taken more than that. I think he took 330 in the past cycle. So we take as many as we can, as far as there are many factors for safety, and also the limitations of the building itself. It's never appropriate to have 45 students in a kindergarten classroom, but you can't put 45 students in a machine shop, you know. So the OSHA rules, the collective bargaining agreement, and the state monitoring rules all dictates very strong safety ratios. So we have excellent teaching ratios, which also limit the total number of students. But our population has doubled since I've served as your superintendent.
And I know you guys have been very responsive. I mean, the hairdressing program that used to siphon off too many kids at high tuition rates, you came through for us.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to help these 30 kids that didn't get in with some kind of program at Milford High, I personally would encourage any efforts like that.
Okay. Yeah, the cosmetology is the famous story of Chucky Calagione, who served on your finance committee.
He's dropping a Chucky on us.
Chucky was somewhat upset about the out-of-district tuitions being paid to another school, and so he asked us to add cosmetology, and what probably is a well-known story now is we added, and Chucky had the very first haircut in the cosmetology program, and he said it wouldn't.
Not anymore.
He said it wouldn't take long. So,
No, I was really pleased when you added it because that was a large chunk of outplacement money.
yes, yeah. So, and that's an example of our ability, but that's when the 13 towns supported the expansion to do that. That's cosmetology is one of the 3 new programs. Dental assisting, and, you know, with people like Dr. Carl DiGregorio, who's very active for many years on the school committee and certainly in the town of Milford, was a key member of the consultant group volunteering for that particular program. That's an example of the partnerships that have been in place with Milford and you know, and its vocational technical school.
Anything else?
No, appreciate any support you can extend. We realize that some of the towns they just don't plan like you do. Okay, and so they're caught off guard whenever there's a shift of state money or anything else. We never relied upon ESSER money or one-time stimulus money for operational or repeating expenses. We generally get at least $1 million a year in competitive grants. The industry and our graduates have been very generous in their donations. One of the many projects we're doing now is we've asked to help 6 towns in the animal rescue, the regional animal rescue program that's out of Blackstone. I don't know if Milford's in that one, but in any case, their facility is outdated. We designed the original facility, and over the years, whether it be the trails, you know, bicycle paths, things like that, we're glad to help. You know, we'll continue to do that. If you have projects that are safe, they don't displace, you know, industry, we're always glad to help to do those kind of things. So,
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Just as a point of adaptation, as we talked about with the fact that I talked about it 15 years ago, you adapted, and what were your first 3 shops?
First 3 shops in the
Plumbing,
school?
carpentry, whatever.
In 1964.
Yeah, just plumbing, carpentry.
It was all the
Drafting.
building trades.
Can you tell me your last 3 shops? Because this is going to blow people away. Tell me your last 3 shops that you added.
Well, now you're into the biotechnologies,
That's my-
the engineering,
That's what I'm talking
and
Robotics.
I'm talking about the adaptation of BBT with the times.
Yeah.
What are the last 3 shops you guys added?
well, the very last one is biotechnology, okay? And the Waters Corporation has almost married the program. Where's Waters? No, it's not in
Yep.
not in Millville.
And then what else?
Information technology.
Exactly. And what else?
networking, and engineering.
Exactly. Look at how you went from, you noticed what was there, and you guys adapt with the times, and that's what BBT always does. You adapt with state funding, you adapt with towns around us. That's what you guys do. You're very aware of what's going on, and you realize what's going on. And that's why, like I said, you may have started with carpentry, plumbing, and drafting, and now we got biotechnology, robotics, and engineering.
It's important to note that that's not entirely our decision, that the state will not only limit you in starting a new program, they want to make sure that there's jobs in the region.
I'm complimenting you, Anthony.
No,
You know what I mean?
I understand, but I just want to give credit where it's due, because sometimes
Well-
people say, well, you took Valley Tech in the wrong direction. But what needs to be understood is the state's very careful with that. They analyze the region, they know where the job growth is, where the demand is, and then they encourage us to open shops like biotechnology.
I didn't mean to take it down a rabbit hole. You're right. I probably should have shut my mouth, but
No, it's fine.
my point is, the point was a compliment of that you guys adapt to whatever's going on.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, and that's what we teach the students to do. This flexibility, adaptability is what they need to do all through life. But we've also strengthened the basic programs, what they call the industrial art types, or the core programs. There's 66 students in plumbing. Okay.
If you can get them in my house, that would be great.
No, I
'cause
understand it. No,
on a
and
3-week waiting
I'm
list.
saying, but to have 66 students willing to pursue a rigorous career in plumbing, which is a licensed trade, it requires apprenticeship, all kinds of hours, lots of changes in the licensing factors. It's a very demanding career path, but there's 66 kids in that program. And the adaptations are within all the programs. Okay, but no, again, we want to, if we have a program that's not placing someone, we'll close it down gradually. Okay, and then we'll transition to something that has employment, which is really what Mr.
I was
Steele-
trying to be complimentary, Doc.
No,
So I totally understand.
Well, I mean, Anthony, I don't think anybody would question biotech in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
Yeah,
Good.
I was just more or less making the point that these are very carefully thought out things when we open programs or close programs. There has to be the student interest at the front end, and there also has to be a job at the back end. And
Yeah.
I have no doubt that when Dr. Michael and Paul Revere first took their classes,
Okay.
that it was different.
Yeah, the biotechnology program, the kickoff for that was $750,000 from the state. So that's one of the reasons we didn't come to you for capital. Okay, and then our own school, again, because we have the construction, electrical, HVAC, and other personnel to do it, oftentimes makes the renovations if it's inside the building. So,
I know you're not looking for a commitment yet, but to everybody on the committee, does anybody see any obstacles to us supporting $1 million-ish in capital for the roof when it comes due?
Absolutely not.
And every 20 years, if all you need is $1 million worth of capital, I think you'll get the same reaction. But I know you look to take from each town kind of a feeling. I guess what you're seeing here is a very positive feeling.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know I was kidded last time about how often do I ask for a bond. And I said, I promise you, in 20 years, I will not be asking for a bond because I'll be 117. But before I conclude my remarks, I want a special thanks to Mike Nicholson, who was kind enough to come over and inspect the cafeteria, the culinary arts area relative to that. And so who had to run home, couldn't even stay for lunch. But nevertheless, I appreciate him coming over and
He didn't buy you lunch, Nicholson? Are you kidding me?
we offered. So
I was going to say, that used to be the incentive to talk to Mike.
That's the only reason I went to talk to
Come
him.
over here and we'll make you lunch.
over the
No, I'm
years,
sorry, I had a commitment I had to go to.
over the years, some of the members have been able to take advantage of that perk. Yes, that's true, and we invite
20
you.
years
And it's
ago, I
been
got a free
phenomenal.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you do for our kids.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
You guys are the best. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Al,
Yes, sir.
if possible, unless that brochure is available online, would you put 2 copies in the FinCom mailbox, one for me and I assume one for Carly here, so we can pick those up?
I'm grabbing them for you right now, Mike.
Thank you.
Grab 2 from him.
And I was hoping to try to catch them to ask when they thought that the assessment numbers, final assessment numbers would actually be out and available.
That's not going to happen anytime soon.
I know last year, I think it was the end of March,
That's right.
so we'll just watch for those.
Well, as long as it's minus something, I'll be happy. Okay, the next item that I'd like to cover is our financial director's report, because then we'll get to subcommittee talks. I'll start off by saying I'm impressed with the budget proposals that have been made. This year is going to be a very unique year for our town. It's the first year in a long time that I'm nervous about being able to fund everything that's been asked of us.
Should be.
When I look at all the asks, and this is not, I would love to have, maybe possibly, this is, I need 4 new firemen, I need 4 new policemen, I need, it seems like, Jack, if I'm estimating right, about $10 million of extra I need. And I don't know how we can count on anything close to that, but why don't you walk us through what you and Dr. Abodabo put together?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and that was a nice lead-in. I'm going to present, first off, we had our meeting a couple weeks ago, the chairman meeting, and it's going to be a little bit different of a presentation. We knew that there were going to be some large desired asks, so I thought it was important to take that into account. For tonight's presentation, I'm still going to heave those warnings, but for tonight's presentation, I'm not going to stray from what we normally do this time of year. So Paul and I put together these scenarios of what would work as a balanced budget. That's what our job is at this time, is to present a balanced budget to town meeting, making very clear that that may be a little bit different than what actually gets submitted. But since that meeting a couple weeks ago, we've already had some difficult talks, and the picture seems a little bit better, but more work needs to be done. So I just wanted to give that foundation before I get into it. Paul, is this on the drive for the folks on Zoom?
They got, they all got.
Yeah, he emailed it to all of us.
We all got an email to
Okay, I'm going to work off of that document that was distributed by Paul. I'll go through.
Just for the record, at the bottom of your document, sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
It should say, prepared by Paul Abodabo, 2/14/24, so that they don't get confused with any other document.
Thank you. I'll go through, pause me if there are any questions, be happy to expand upon it. So I'm going to start with the revenue. Proposition 2.5, the levy, by and far our largest revenue source. It's quite easy to estimate because of the magic of Prop 2.5. It's 2.5% above what we could have raised last year, and then a component of that calculation is new growth. A lot of this is using historical data to build out these scenarios. That historical data says we're going to go with an estimate of $800,000 for new growth at this time. For reference, last year came in ultimately at 1.2, but that was a decent year. We've had 700, we've had 900, so for now, 800's a good number. Now, I'm gonna lay some bricks here that I really want to sink in. Between the Prop 2.5 and the estimated new growth, that's plus $3 million. That's our largest revenue component, is the levy, plus $3 million estimated. Local receipts, doing a little bit better than last year because they have been going up. Nothing too material, so for all intents and purposes, similar to last year, okay? Cherry sheet, and here's the big kicker now, cherry sheet with the state. The past 4 years, we've been riding this gravy train that was really resulting from the Student Opportunity Act with Chapter 70, which was basically a shuffling of the deck based on diversified needs of various communities. Last year, when I was presenting this, I was somewhat flabbergasted at the 18% increase that we saw.
Now, Zach, just for people who don't live this thing, cherry sheet is the state contributions to the town.
Correct.
Chapter 70 is the school contribution.
The school-specific
State.
purpose of cherry sheet, which is state, yes.
So it's part of the cherry sheet.
That is correct. Yep.
I just want to make sure, because we use jargon, because we all live with it every day, but somebody who's watching may sit there and say, what's a cherry sheet?
That's a good point, Al. And to expand upon that, cherry sheet, AKA state aid, second largest component of our revenue stream. Last year, to put this in perspective, we looked at a Chapter 70 increase of 18+%. This year, which I believe is the final year of the 5 years of Student Opportunity Act, is a 4% increase, okay? Unrestricted general government aid, 3%. Overall state, not break it into categories, $2 million, okay? Just said earlier, put a pin in that 3 million and 2 million. $5 million is our grand total increase in revenue estimates for fiscal year '25. Now, one important thing to note, typically this time of year when I'm presenting this, Paul and I usually do not use the full governor's anticipated increase. Do that because there's a chance it could go down. We did that certainly in the past few years because the numbers were so astronomical. This is the exact figures, so there is no fluff here. There's nothing like that. The picture does not appear to be getting better. These are
only getting worse.
These are the exact figures that we use. 3 million levy, 2 million state aid, $5 million overall increase in our estimated revenue. That's super important because I really want this to sink in when I flip over to the expenditure side. Top right-hand side, operational budget. This is not what we expect to be submitted or desired. This is what we're building out to equal a balanced budget, which we must do at this time and present to town meeting. So again, using historical data, mixed in, sprinkled in with some known asks that must happen, items such as health insurance, looking at 6.5% increase, maybe a little bit worse. We'll see where that falls. Retirement is an adopted funding schedule, increasing at 6.7% per year. We know that's the number. Historically, police and fire do a little bit bigger of an increase than all the other budgets, so we estimated at 4.5 for police, fire at 4.25, and school is also one of those mega budgets that historically does not follow most others. We have, at this time, 6.5%. So some of the subcommittees are probably thinking those aren't the numbers that we've been seeing right now, and that is true. But for now, again, we need to present a balanced budget, so that's where some of the work comes in. Now, this is what I really want everyone to think about. Total operational budget built off of what we need to present as a balanced budget is an increase of $8 million over the previous year. Just told everyone we got an increase in revenue of 5. So that's a flip of the script from prior years that we have seen. That's a large increase, and only place to take that is excess levy capacity, or we don't have capital like we've had in the past. For example, last year's capital, we had a really good free cash year, if you recall, of 8 million. So we were able to do some items that we otherwise may not have. It was in the $10 million range. We were able to pull that off because of our large free cash. Right now, we have estimated our 1.75. And as you can see in that middle number, it's actually deficit, but an immaterial amount, so I'm calling it a balanced budget at this time. So that's a challenge.
So this free cash number, is that just a plug, or what is that on the left-hand side?
That's the sum of the two.
Oh, yeah, that's the sum of the two amounts. That's not actual free cash.
It's a zero.
It's zero. Free cash is zero. That 12 million is the total of the two enterprise funds.
Oh, I see, so it should just be down one line.
Yeah, which I didn't really mention the enterprise because it's directly offset on the expenditures on the top right-hand
You have
side.
$1 of expense in water revenue.
Yeah.
$1 of revenue in water, you have $1 of expense,
Exactly.
and the same with sewer.
Fully self-sustaining.
I think at this point, one thing to keep in mind, we keep hearing excess levy. I always love the term excess levy.
You're not going to love it
People
this
say, well, you
year.
can raise up $5 million on levy and it doesn't affect taxes. I want to make it clear, levy increase is 2.5%. If we spend more of the levy gap, that's the same thing as saying we're increasing our taxes.
100% true.
Because if we take $1 million out of the excess levy, that just means we can go in front of town meeting, and town meeting can say, go ahead and spend $1 million. You just took $80 out of my pocket as a homeowner. For every million, Paul, I think that number's still close enough. For every million we spend, it costs each home $80
On the average tax bill.
on the average tax.
This is the worst sheet we've seen in 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want everyone to take a minute to think about that. This is the worst sheet we have seen in 10 years. Some of you may not have been here, some of us have, Zach, you have, but this is the worst sheet I've seen in 10 years. And I think it's going to be worse than this,
David?
in my mind.
Zach, you might get to this, but can you let me know the mechanics of how the fiscal year 24 levy adjustment works?
Yes, yeah. Well, why don't you put a pin in that? Let me, if there's no other questions, I'll continue the presentation of that bottom right-hand side, including exactly what you're asking. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. So that bottom right, sometimes we like to call goals and objectives. And then there's other areas in there that just must be raised on the tax recap. I'm going to go over the must be raised on the tax recap first to get that out of the way. And then we'll go over some of the objectives or placeholders to meet said objectives. The overlay, and it has parentheses estimate there, 760K. That's a very safe number. If it's bigger or smaller, it'd be extremely insignificant. That is meant for abatements and exemptions, whether it's for a senior or a veteran and whatnot. Very safe number. Assessments, that's the flip side of your state aid. Here's $20 from the state, but we're taking $2 back to pay for school choice, or charter school, which are the
Spray
two
for
largest
mosquitoes.
components. Mosquito spray, metropolitan planning, whole bunch of small guys there. But that, again, is the exact figure that's put out in the governor's budget right now. So that takes it as an expenditure on the flip side.
See, there alone, when you say school choice, it can only get worse. My understanding, well, Michael, tell me if I'm wrong, but we've had to shut down the gazinta of school choice. We cannot take any more kids in because our classes are maxed out. Correct?
That is correct. Yes.
You cannot, by law, shut off the gazauta. You know, it's up to each parent whether they keep their children in Milford or send them out. The state just gives us the bill. So when you start looking at things like school choice, it can only get worse from 514,000. It cannot get better until we free up capacity. And if I'm right, I don't remember that being a possibility for a number of years.
have a question. Zach, do you know if the town's tax revenue from hotel room taxes has decreased specifically over the last 2 years?
As a result of COVID, it definitely did decrease, and it's
I'm
been,
talking about the government contracting hotels for the use of migrants.
We have not seen a change in that based on that.
But Vinnie,
So a
remember,
room tax is still being paid on those?
as of
for
right now,
90
yes.
days. See, what the state has said is, we took over the Best Western.
Yes.
Now, Milford was benefiting 6% on every room sold.
Correct.
Okay, it was over $1 million in our heyday. The minute you take over the Best Western, that 6% is being paid for by the state. Now, my understanding is the state has said, we're going to pay for the first 90 days. And everybody said, what happens on day 91?
Yeah.
We're going to pay for the first 90 days. They haven't said they won't pay for it, but they haven't said, starting 90 days on, that they will pay for it, so we don't know, Vinnie.
That's my
So
understanding.
there's a certain amount, whatever that amount is right now, I don't know, that may not be there on the 91st day.
Yes. We have 7 hotels in Milford.
Yes.
That generate about $1 million net to us. One of them potentially just went offline on day 91.
And possibly more.
Well, again,
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
That's why what Chris is saying is true. School choice can only get worse.
Yeah.
So assuming,
Charter school, too.
In the charter school, but the hotel occupancy tax could be even if the state gets generous and pays the occupancy tax, but it could get worse. Paul?
Yeah, so the hotel tax initially took a hit when COVID-19 broke out. So in that year, 2020, it dropped down from that.
To like 700.
It was even probably a little lower. I don't know the numbers off the top, but it has crept back up the last 3 years. So Vinnie's question as to whether it's gone down over the last 2 years, it has gone up over the last 2 years. Keep it in mind also, because of inflation, when the hotel charges $100, we get whatever it is. If it's 4%, we get $4. But now if they're charging $120, we're getting 20% increase on that. So the inflation of the rate increases the revenue stream without occupying any more rooms, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, my only fear is if the state is paying with state money, or is it paying with federal funds that are coming to the state for the use of migrant housing? You know what I mean? And those funds are always in doubt as to whether they're going to come to the state or not.
My gut feeling is the state's going to put $100 into the kitty. Whichever way you slice it out, whether you're paying for more rooms or tax on the rooms, whatever, they're not going to be able to keep up with the demand. If the
Yeah.
population keeps growing, all indications are they're not going to be able to, and we're $800 million short on the state budget already. It's not like they're swimming in cash. Sorry, Scott.
No worries. And I just looked at the close of fiscal '23, it was $1,023,000. And all indication right now, which we still are in that 90-day window, so it's a good observation, a good question. We're on point right now still. So we estimated 900,000, 100K less than the quote-unquote typical year, just to be on the safe side.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. All right, continuing with that bottom right-hand side, we just went over the overlay, we went over the assessments. Those other 3 categories would fall within our goals and objectives. I'll go over each one of them. The stabilization, this is continuing with the trend that we've set out and we've been doing for 6 years now, 7 years now, where we're tucking away into our long-term stabilization account for the inevitable school that will be coming in front of us. And I will go over shortly the feasibility study that we likely will be looking at in May. So it's kind of here. Now, what we have been doing, why you see it as a funky number, not a rounded number, $1,745,000. At one point, I believe we started with 1.5 and then we went with this goal of as debt falls off, which it has been, we've been adding the exact amount into stabilization purposely to maintain that for the next major bonding, which likely will be a school, okay? Whether it's renovation, whether it's a brand-new school, a feasibility study will tell us that. So to me, that is really important that that maintains there, and it's consistent with what we've been doing for a long time now. Capital projects, it's super important that we maintain money at the levy level, at the raise and appropriate level, which is here, not fully exclusively counting on free cash being available. Will it? Likely, yes, but we want to make sure that we have it just in case there is not. So we have a number of $1,750,000. This particular year, that may seem like a drop in the bucket when I talk about some things that are going to be coming down the road. And then for David's question here, the levy adjustment, that is also keeping with like a long-term strategy that we have been doing where we're maintaining the prior year's levy capacity. Why are we doing that? Twofold. One, tax growth. That was the presentation you just gave. Okay, well, why aren't we using all the levy? Because it's an increase in taxes, right? So I know you say all the time, we put out good services at an affordable price. So I certainly take that to heart, and we try to put that together. But second, also sticking with this theme of a school coming down the road, if it's going to be anywhere the numbers we're talking about, you just heard Dr. Fitzpatrick present, what do you say, Franklin, 300 million, you know?
That's incorrect. It's 350 million.
350 million. Those huge numbers happening right now.
Just put in for
Huge.
450 million.
It's crazy.
Shot down, but they're going to come back at 300. That's for a new school.
What's even crazier is the fact that we haven't built a school this year, but we're going to have to eat up some levy capacity this year.
Yes.
And we're not building anything.
Chris just
So I think
concluded.
everybody needs to think about that a lot. We maintained levy capacity for many, many reasons. Bond rating, relief of the taxpayers, great efficiency in spending. We're coming into a year now where we're not going to do, but I say that, and that's totally untrue. I apologize. There are some things in the bottom left-hand corner that we need to tackle. But my point is, even without tackling those, school initiatives, raises, everything else, for the first time in, I'd say maybe 12 years, the levy capacity is going to go down instead of up. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I don't think I am. But I'm telling you right now that we're going to hit levy adjustment, and we're not doing anything.
I mean,
People should be scared.
I personally
People should be
think
scared.
we have to keep the levy adjustment at a 5 to 6 million level, just in anticipation of the high school. Because if you lose that structural balance, you're heading toward a 2.5, which I will oppose under any circumstances.
Listen, Andy, I'm not arguing with you, but you got to pay bills.
I think the thing that was amazing to me, and my hats were off to the school committee, is they had a budget that went up incrementally over $6 million this year when they got together with their principals. I went into a meeting last week and I was amazed because the school committee started off saying, we know we can't do this. Our Chapter 70, all of our income is going up 4%. We know we have to cut $2-3 million out of our needed ask. Fundamentally, that's incredible attitude. That's an incredible change from what you read in the paper about all the other towns where the school committee now is going after the select board, after the taxpayers. I found it so refreshing.
Definitely.
I mean, it was painful. You had to see the looks on their faces when they said, remember that teacher we need? We don't get that one. Remember that initiative? We don't get that one. And Michael and I are just sitting there, listening, and they're making the case for us. So we should be pleased that once again the department heads in Milford are treating this in a way that very few other towns do. But Chris is right. Step one is taken care of this year, and we'll finish off some of the asks. But 2 years from now, is that when the interest will hit for the high school, 3 years?
Somewhere around there, potentially.
And that could be if we do a renovation, that could be $7 million of expense interest. And we'll be lucky if that's all it is.
Exactly. And right now, and Chris actually concluded it perfectly. That's what I was going to say, but he jumped the gun and got it. Well done.
Right.
Well done. No worries. Andy,
talk too much,
Andy
that's the
did
problem.
too. Andy did too. So right now, if we keep with the theme of what we've been doing for many years, we have them set here. So once we actually bond, we're not going to throw into stabilization anymore because we're doing that because we need to be prepared for the offset. We have the levy capacity that's above and beyond that $7 million. So we'll still be able to achieve some tax relief there, and we'll be well prepared in order to handle such a bond. If we start eating that up now at the 11th hour here, I hate to say it, but we're probably in trouble, you know? So that's kind of the warning I'm heaving right now.
Right now,
Stay the course.
You have a balanced budget based on history and everything.
Based on what we put together, that is, I am not saying that's what's getting
We haven't gotten to
submitted.
the bottom
No, I'm
left-hand
just
corner,
saying.
sir.
Now, all of a sudden, we hit
Yes. Yep.
the wants.
Yep, so I'm going to leave the budget wants for a different discussion in the subcommittees for now, but I will tackle the capital asks, and some of these aren't really negotiable, we have to do them.
These aren't even footnotes, these are whole leg notes.
These are leg notes, yeah. Very bottom left, okay? And some of these are going to come in May. Central Street Bridge, and you're going to see a theme here where some of these items are tackling what we thought we already tackled. So that's kind of this big problem that's all occurring at the same time here. Central Street Bridge, we appropriated $1.5 million in 21, I believe. It might have been 22.
Wasn't it one
It
point?
was 1.5. There was a grant too that
Yeah.
came to the
Oh, okay.
1.7.
Grant matching.
Yep,
Zach, is that the bridge in front of the town barn?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, people don't know that we have a Central Street Bridge. We think of it as a Central Street Tunnel because it runs, does. It runs from Pheno Field under Central Street out. Nobody looks at that as a bridge, but that is technically the Central
Runs
Street
under Main
Bridge.
Street and all the way down and under Central Street, correct. It used to run under the factory that was there.
On the Stylons.
No, Stylon, that's at the other end. The Archer Rubber
Archer.
Company used to run underneath there,
Well, all of that was Milford Shoe, Porter Shoe, that whole area.
that whole area, yeah.
Either way, it's $1 million extra dollars.
Yeah, the issue here, Scotty tried going out to bid, wasn't sufficient. We appropriated that before inflation, so the new estimate is at least $8 million. So,
Incremental.
and that has to happen, or they're going to shut it down, and you're going to have a massive, massive traffic problem. So,
We talked about that at our last meeting.
So we did
Yeah.
talk that the $2.9 million bids that were coming in were to do half of Central Street, then the other half. We may be able to shut down Central Street for 90 days, do both sides at once, and save a little bit, but it's still going to be close to $1 million
yep.
on top of what town meeting already approved. So I know there's people going to be sitting there saying, I voted for that already 2 years ago. Yes, you did. And back then it was 1.5 or 1.7, and now it's 2.9.
Yep.
If we squeeze hard, maybe we can get it to 2.7.
Exactly.
But that one, to me, there's no choice. You can't,
You got to do it.
if you don't do it, it's going to collapse.
Yeah,
And then we don't have Central Street. And worse, then we lose the grant.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then you
Pretty
can
much.
rush and get it fixed,
Yep.
Yeah.
which will cost twice as much.
Milford Youth Center water, that's the water infiltration issue that's been going on since the renovation. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes with litigation and experts, and they finally feel that they can tackle this. Right now, I'm using a number of 1 million, and I'll leave it at that for this time. This likely will be an October deal, not a May deal, but it's coming.
But that $1 million has been the topic of discussion, that we're going to sue the architect, we're going to sue the dogs, the cats, the sheep, everything that was involved problem is, we got to deal with fixing it now.
Yes.
Because if we don't fix the problem, that million's going to go up substantially. So we're hoping to get it back, or get a partial payment when we sue somebody. But right now, there's $1 million, and again, we're kind of stuck, because if you don't, you're just going to deteriorate the building worse and worse.
We
Mr.
only
Chairman, you're
bought it.
100% right. This 1 million is non-negotiable.
Don't say we bought it for $1, Vinnie.
Yeah. In my own personal opinion is that building is a money pit. We've sunk millions into it already. And that's not even counting the personnel funding that's gone into it as employees, benefits, and so on. And, that building was built in 1911. It probably should have been bulldozed
In 1912.
in 1970.
But be it as
There
it
we are.
may, it's a critical access for kids in Milford.
It is.
So we
no
got
doubt.
it, we own it, we've already sunk 5 or 6 million into
Vinny,
it.
this is non-negotiable. This is water in the walls. You leave it, we got mold in the walls, then we got $2 million, then we got people saying...
Is there a creek or something running underneath it?
Yeah, there's
No,
a dang
it's not a
stream.
creek, it's a river.
It's a river, it's a stream running underneath. If you go downstairs where the old target range was,
Yeah.
there's torpedo tubes.
But this is rain, this doesn't have anything to do with the river.
That is true, but that's not the
This is-
water I'm
this is-
talking about. This is penetration
Infiltration.
From the walls in.
on the walls.
This is
From the heavy
infiltration.
rains that we recently had.
Yes, yes. Well, it's since we've
No, since
we've
day one.
renovated.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
Infiltration.
So this is money that, if we don't spend it, we're going to have, as Chris said, worse issues. We can hope to get some of it back, but from a planning point of view, we got to assume we're not getting any of it
Well
back.
stated.
That's a wing and a prayer, too.
Yep.
You're right.
Keep going.
All right, so we briefly mentioned the high school feasibility. It's going to be in the $2 million range. Now, you see a couple asterisks there. We did, and this helps our situation here, fortunately, from our clever planning, we did tuck away into the other short-term or capital stabilization account. So I definitely would suggest that this will happen in May.
Absolutely
That
tap
the
in on
funding
that.
source is going to be that stabilization account, the short-term one.
But again, we take money out of there, that's less we have available
Yeah,
for the high school.
yep, true.
We created the short term, no term, any term, whatever we need, stabilization account, the mini stabilization. And what do we have in there now, 6?
It's a little
Around it,
better.
but Mr. Chairman, the whole point was if you...
8-4,
Hey,
8-4?
yes, in the
I
short
thought it
term.
was 6-2. My point is, Mr. Chairman, though, eventually, you got to take a hammer to the piggy bank every once in a while. And this is the time that we put it in there on purpose. As much as I love to keep that piggy bank sealed, I think all you guys know how I am. We got to hit
Well,
the
the other thing
piggy bank
is,
with a hammer on this one.
it's to our benefit to go in front of the school building authority and say, don't worry about funding the feasibility study.
Yes.
Here's my checkbook.
Yep,
It's
you're
already in
exactly
there.
right. Yep.
That moves us up on their list.
Yep.
Exactly.
No, you're exactly right.
But it is not free money, because that's something we have to pay more of when the high school actually comes our way.
Always a trade-off.
Yep.
Yep. Then the last, these are just large items, like I'm not talking the normal trucks and rescues and all that. These are just notable, rounded, large numbers. So that's all those other items too.
And can I just say, before you get into that, I think everyone should know that there's above and beyond this. This is high ticket stuff. And I think everyone on this table and everyone who's watching on TV should know, as Zach says, every time we do this, he never has this in the bottom left-hand corner, but he does the above and beyond afterwards. And we all moan and groan, oh, rrr, rrr, rrr. Now we have $6.4 million in the bottom left corner, and then he's going to come back to me and tell me, I got above and beyond stuff too. So just everyone, and Zach, I'm not being crazy here, correct?
You're not being crazy. And the other reason, I suspect that most, if not all, these items will be May. Typically, we're like dealing with these in October, to your point. These are coming up, and they're such large items, we need to plan for it now and have it in our mind for the big picture. All right, so that last item, geriatric authority. Now, to be clear, I have on here $2.4 million. That's because that's been the trend of what an entire year would look like. I do not know what the trustees would put in for, or if they will be here in May. I suspect the answer is yes, they will, but there's certain forces that may kick it to October. One way or the other, in my opinion, there will be an article that we face during this budget cycle, and it may be that high.
In one way or another, we have to budget for it.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's silly to ignore it. You know, it's like, we have $3.5 million of must-spend capital, which is the normal year of capital. We only have 1.75. We always counted on free cash, because there's things in that must-spend capital, like wastewater, the water programs. Those are state demanded. We don't have a choice.
I wouldn't even put them under capital, to tell you the truth.
But
Because
Mr.
they're
Chairman's
annual.
right on point, though.
I'd put them under a new category. I mean, it's not capital improvements, right? I mean, I think that's the intention of.
No,
That's
you're right.
fine, but the chairman's right on point that this is the same bucket of money for May.
No, I understand it's the same bucket of money, but.
So
I think
he's
capital
100% on point.
Yeah.
Whether you hit May or October, he's 100% right. It
cost.
needs to be considered now.
No, I get that, I'm just being a little.
It's
No,
not
David, I
capital
didn't,
to that
and I
point,
apologize,
but,
David, I didn't mean to shut you off like that.
No.
But I just was agreeing with him that this is the same bucket of money in May that we have. So whether you talk about it in May or you talk about it in October, if you're talking about $2.4 million, we're talking about it now. I don't care if it happens in
Well, I think
October.
the point is now, if geriatric needs $2.5 million, there's things on here that, extra police, extra fire.
Yep.
I mean, there's 2 or 3 million more.
School system.
Schools.
School took away $3 million.
No, seriously, I mean, at some point, we need to still
we're
educate our
gonna have
kids,
to come
as tough
up
as we
with-
are in the schools.
Some hard decisions to say, if we're going to fund geriatric for another 2.5. Because the other ones, Central Street Bridge, there's no choice. There is absolutely no choice. We cannot shut down, my opinion, you cannot shut down Central Street.
I live on the other side of town, so you can do it if you feel like it.
You know, the water at NYC,
That Excel spreadsheet you have that goes back to the 1700s on capital, how much is allocated in there right now for all the other little stuff that we were just referring
over
to?
$3 million
Yeah,
worth of.
3 million.
So why are we carrying this at $1,750,000?
Because we always do, and we cut it back. Every year we end up,
So the $3 million is not
it's going to be 1.7.
need.
And part of it can be free cash in
Yeah,
October.
so I was just
Yes.
gonna say.
We always came.
And that's the extra stuff I was talking about, Zach talks about.
That,
Yep.
the trend has always been, let's say these are the critical needs, and we got to keep them under 1.7. Then, if free cash allows, and every year, I mean, guys, we've been averaging 3 million-ish to 8 million. More likely the $3 million mark
Yeah, free cash.
of free cash. Now, that free cash is going to get sucked up. And I can't imagine that we're going to, it's up to you all and town meeting, really. If we want to roll the dice and say, let's hope that we get $5 or $6 million in free cash, that we can offset one-time expenses, and if we don't, we'll cut budgets. Because cutting budgets in the middle of the year is ugly.
Look at the numbers, Mr. Chairman. The free cash number ain't happening. I'm sorry.
No, we went through it in 2003.
Yep, you're right.
It's when we learned that for everybody we laid off, you didn't get a 1-for-1, you got a 1.6 person layoff to get a net -1. And that was ugly and painful.
I'm sure it was.
Yep.
So, I mean, in here, there are critical asks. The police came to us and asked for $1 million of incremental salary, and that's forever. Fire came, asked for $1 million forever. We went and met with the fire chief, and again, I'm always amazed, because what I read in the paper about all these other towns fighting amongst themselves, Chief Nelson came back and said, well, if I had to, for the good of the town, I could live with 200,000 incremental this year. That is a refreshing attitude, and I believe Chief Tassino will be the same way. And it will get us probably by this, but if you start blending in 2.5 million of geriatric, and I'm not saying plus or minus, we'll talk about that later, but that money's got to come from somewhere. And I don't believe Milford Youth Commission water or the geriatric should be bet on. Maybe we'll have possibly the money. Something we're going to have to cut.
Is the geriatric 2.5 million and loan guarantee or funding?
No,
or
cash. They're losing, well, they've been losing 200,000 a month. At least our subcommittee has not given me any indication it's going to get better.
Right.
Well, I've heard it could go down to 180.
And this is not a town department, correct? It's a separate entity?
It's an independent agency.
It's an
So
independent
it sounds-
agency, but it's like,
But it sounds like it's slowly becoming an arm of the town.
Vinny, if you
Funded.
co-signed for a car loan for your daughter
I understand
and she
that.
stopped paying, who's the bank going to come after? You co-signed it.
Yeah, but that is in loan guarantees, but giving money outright to them because it's failing, it just seems to be that there's no bottom to it.
Well, let's hold that till after this discussion. Right now, we're going to have to really consider hard things like Central Street Bridge, Youth Commission water remediation, feasibility for the high school. If we don't pay up on that feasibility, we fall out of line. And that means 180, 200 million, whoever number you're going to believe, becomes in jeopardy, and we end up on the hook.
Mr. Chairman, you have a question from Carly.
Carly, I didn't see your hand.
No worries. Can I just ask a clarifying question, and maybe it can be in a later conversation, but like Chris, I know you said whether it's now or October, we need this money, we need to factor it in, and I'm with you. At some point, can we revisit the conversation we had with council about when we are allowed to talk about things at town meeting that are or are not on the warrant? So if for some reason this is not on the warrant in the May meeting, can we start to talk about the financial picture if they don't come forward, Countryside in particular, if they don't come forward until the October meeting? I just want us to start to think about that and revisit that conversation.
Great question, Paul.
Yeah, you can. Article 1 on the annual town meeting warrant says to hear any reports of committees. That's the wording in Article 1. Anyone else can read it and see what their legal interpretation of that
And I
is.
think the confusion was special town meeting rules versus annual town meeting. Annual town meeting has Article 1. Because how can we put together a budget? There are no articles to discuss about youth center, about the Central Street Bridge. There's no warrant.
It's a great question, Carly.
So, Carly, yes, we can talk about it because it's part and parcel of building a budget.
It's
But it has to be
great,
at the
thank
May
you.
meeting, because there's an Article 1, my understanding.
Yeah, in May, it's a steel cage match. We can do anything we
But
want.
if it's not in the budget, then you can talk about it. So if they don't come in,
No, at May we could. At May we can because it's part of Article 1. Or part of the
Exactly.
town meeting.
Not.
Carly.
if the 2. Just throwing out numbers, if the 2.4 isn't in the budget and they come in October for a special warrant, that means we cannot talk about it in May then?
You can. Article 1 is committee reports.
So it doesn't matter if it's in or not?
Right. Nothing's in.
All right.
If they
We're
have
talking about our available money.
If they do an article in October,
Right.
we could talk about
Yes,
it all
there
day
you
long.
go.
Okay.
Yep.
Both.
But he's saying if there's.
That was my point, David, that was my point. I just wanted to make sure we remember that as we talk about the May town meeting, even if there is not an article on the warrant.
Like,
Great point,
And there
Carly.
very well could be. I'm not saying there won't be. There very well
But it
could
doesn't
Oh, it's
matter,
going to be
because
on there, guys.
One way or another, if things aren't on there, we need to take them into consideration when we're building the budget. Otherwise, I got to tell you.
We're delinquent if we don't.
That 165 is going to be 175, like that.
Yep.
Except for one little thing.
100%.
The right side of the equation, which is how do you pay for it?
100%. 100%.
Exactly
It's
why
no
it's
different
on.
if we don't have the feasibility study by then, right? It would be the same conversation. We may not have the answer to the feasibility
Exactly.
study, but we have every right. We should talk about it in May.
Great example.
Exactly.
Great example.
We should count on the fact that in August, we're going to put up close to $2 million for a feasibility study.
Yep.
If it doesn't happen, in my opinion, we leave the money where it is So when it comes up next year,
Yep.
we still have the money.
That's a
And
great
what
example,
Zach
Charlie.
had said is we got to be careful, because the temptation is to nibble away now. But in 3 years, there's 7 million coming our way.
Exactly. Couple more points if I will, and then I'm done. Any questions I'll answer. All right, so what you had mentioned, like, oh, why do we have 1.75 if we have over 3 million in capital? This is purely at the levy level, purely. Right now, we have $2.8 million of free cash that's, for lack of a better term, recycled from when we used it in October. Once 630 comes and goes, that goes away until I recertify it. So my point of saying this, that is available at the Maytown meeting as a funding source, all right, which is awesome to have. But also, if we use it, it's going to reduce what it will be recertified as of 7/1. Not the end of the world, just make sure we all know that. One of the main reasons we had such a huge number last year is because we did not use it in May. So a chunk of it was recycled, for lack of a better term. All right. And the 3 major funding sources that you can use will be levy, everything built out here, free cash, 2.8 available in May. We'll see what happens. I have no idea what it might be for next year, but we'll cross that bridge in October. And then stabilization, we talked a little bit about that. So those we can juggle, but we got to be careful because there's ramifications to doing everything. That's where I'm at. That's where we're at this time.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a quick point, because of that massive, massive snowstorm that we received. Zach was unfortunately rescheduled, so he has technically not presented this to the selectmen.
Tomorrow
and he's
night.
doing it tomorrow. So just so you know that this, what he's presented to us, has not been vetted by the selectmen. They have not given their thumbs up, their thumbs down, their thumbs even, any of that kind of stuff. So I can't imagine things are gonna go sideways, but everyone just take everything that Zach said with a grain of salt. Zach, am I crazy? But because after Thursday, things could possibly be changed.
Obviously, I've had some conversations. I think we're
I
good.
figured that, Zach, but I'm saying things for the record. I know we talked 2 hours ago, but
Appreciate
I'm
it.
doing it for the public.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any questions on the first draft of this budget?
No.
And we're going to have select board input so that we consider, they may have different ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't think that they're going to come up with magically $5 to $10 million that we didn't find.
No.
But they may decide, hey, it's better to do geriatric than police and fire. They may decide it's better to do police and fire than geriatric or school. I'm just so pleased right now that we're starting out in a environment that police, fire, school are all willing to work with us versus some of these towns that just say, we need 6 million.
Well, in the 2 weeks since we last met, the pitch has already gotten a little bit better, which is
much
great.
better.
Much better, yeah.
Thanks to the
It was
chief.
very dire 2 weeks ago.
Oh, 2 weeks ago when you came and said we got to
Yeah.
come up with $10 million extra, it was like,
Yeah. Still work to be done, though.
any other questions on this?
Great job, Zach. You, Pilla, Ricky, and I'll throw my head in there just because he's a good-looking
Throw
guy.
Paul up in there,
And of
too.
course, don't worry, Paul. I always finish with you. But seriously, you guys do an incredible job putting this together because how you take the universe and crush it down into one sheet of paper is unbelievably impressive. I will never stop praising you for that. I don't know how you do it, but to put $166 million on one sheet of paper, it's not easy. You have assumptions, you have definites, you have maybes, probablys. You know, what you guys do is just, it's incredible. And you give us this type of document and the feedback and the information that drives us. So I really appreciate it. I mean, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you guys so much.
Appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
The next item.
Zachary, it's better than a cinnamon. Give that to your wife.
You saved my butt for tonight.
I know.
There you go, there's a round.
Carly didn't show up, so I couldn't give it to her. Carly, I gave away your chocolates, dear. I'm sorry.
Gotta be a finance guy, regifting his wife.
No, that was Carly's. Carly, I'll get you one next time.
As far as subcommittee reports, before we get on to your...
Yes, Education Subcommittee.
No, we're just starting subcommittee. Capital has not met because 2 weeks ago, when Zach came to us and said there's $10 million of unfunded asks, that a lot of them are must-dos, I didn't know what to say to the capital requests, so we put them off a month.
Go home.
So that's the report from Capital. Michael, did you have comments?
Yeah, Education Subcommittee. In the January 10th report of the Education Subcommittee to the FinCom, the proposed FY25 school budget included $7.3 million in proposed new initiatives. Later, after a school committee review, the proposed new initiatives were trimmed down from that initial $7.3 million down to $4.4 million. Those were the initiatives. Then on January 25th, Milford received the preliminary FY25 cherry sheet, which was discussed earlier, showing that estimated Chapter 70 funding was drastically reduced from an earlier estimated $55.2 million down to $48.8 million. If this holds, it'll result in a Chapter 70 increase of only $1.98 million over FY24, rather than the previously anticipated $8.4 million. So on February 8th, we were advised that the $4.4 million in proposed initiatives, all of them, had been put on hold by the school committee. So the school administration and the school committee then met on the 8th, as Al mentioned earlier, to identify which, if any, proposed initiatives were considered critical and whether they would need to be retained in the proposed budget. Fortunately, there were only a few. So as a result, the current proposed FY25 school budget now stands at $73.7 million. That's up $4.4 million from FY24's $69.3 million, and which is comprised of a level service increase of 7.17% plus 0.88% net initiatives, minus 1.8% in several offsets. That's giving us a net proposed school budget increase of around 6.25% from FY24 to FY25. And as Al said earlier, I really would like to salute the school committee and the administration on taking the initiatives off the table and starting with a clean slate. That's all I have, Al.
Yeah, for once, this profanity called level services didn't get in the way. And we started at a point of saying, we have to get under 6.5. And sure enough, they did it on their own. I mean, whether they came up with 6.25 or 6.5, my hat's off to the cooperative nature. I've seen this once before, and a few of you have heard the story in 2003, where the union came to us and said, I know you're going to cut everybody's budget. We'll give up our raises this year. Not delay them. Give them up if you guarantee us you'll keep the money in the school area to save teachers. Of course, as FinCom, we couldn't guarantee anything. We could guarantee that we'll try and we'll make the pitch to the town meeting. And sure enough, town meeting backed us. The teachers gave up their raises, and we saved a bunch of teachers. Of course, I felt better 2 years later when we could make it up to them by giving them a little bit bigger raises than we had to, just to say thank you for helping us through a tough period. And here it is again. 25 years later, school committee's coming through again without war or, I mean, you've seen what's in the paper about schools going on strike and just unbelievable conditions. So hats off from at least this old man to our current school committee. Andy, you had one,
Which one is that, fire?
country.
Country. Not sure if there's anything that we really need to cover tonight.
Okay.
We're going to work on a report for May. We'll probably have a meeting, I suspect, sometime in early to mid-March, the subcommittee, then we'll report back.
But I think it's important, did we invite Countryside to come here this month?
As far as I know, they've been invited to every meeting.
And I know one of their members was out of the country, and I guess they couldn't send another member, but I want to make sure that we keep that door open,
Absolutely.
because there's going to be some hard decisions that have to be made, as you can see. And I'm dead serious when I say this idea that we can spend up to the levy limit with no consequences. We can spend more than the levy limit. All we got to do is ask the taxpayers of Milford, how much extra do you want out of your pocket? That $5 million to bring it up to the levy limit, 5 times 80, that's $400 some dollars per homeowner that we would increase taxes on top of what we normally increase. And I think that's, when I hear people say, well, you've got $5 million you can spend, it won't hurt us. Yes, it will hurt, because that's increasing taxes.
It's not $5 million of our money. Did you want to talk about fire, or you want to just leave that for now?
You can give a quick report.
I mean, I didn't bring the details, but Al and the Public Safety Subcommittee met with the fire chief and the deputy fire chief, and there's a few different things they're looking for. One was sort of a realignment of the staff to increase the ratio of supervisory people. As I recall, it had something to do with the fact that there were 2 locations. They have the Birch Street location, the Main Street location. They want to make sure they have adequate supervisory coverage. So that realignment, I think, as Al referenced earlier in this meeting, amounted to maybe an extra $200,000 a year, give or take. And then their secondary request was to increase staffing levels by 4 firefighters, and all baked in, that was closer to $1 million in total.
800 and change.
800 and change. So it was the 200 plus the 800. I can't remember the exact numbers.
It was 200, 400, 100, I think.
Oh, look at you. You get the numbers. Yeah. So there's a few different requests that they had, and they understand that we may need to deal with them incrementally and look at the bigger picture budget. But that's a very brief overview of the meeting we had.
I think the key was they understood that this year could be ugly.
Yes.
And they said, look, if we could have a minimum of 200, that would put us on track to realign the captains, the lieutenants, the fire dogs, the fire chief, everything, all the vehicles, everything the way they need staffed. Not that it would be staffed. And again, we have to remember that to have a +1, police or fire, means 4 people, because they're 24/7. I did ask the chief, I asked Mark, can you issue a memo that fires will only be accepted between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday? Then we only have to have 1 firefighter. He said he didn't think that would work.
In these conversations, was there any concern that the town is outgrowing their services at all? I know you said they need 4 more people, but...
Well, I mean, there's a little discussion about the various apartment complexes
Right.
and the calls that they get for, ambulatory type services and things that aren't necessarily fire related. So, they said they're busy, but, I wouldn't say they feel overwhelmed. But
The answer is yes. Milford has grown by thousands of people. And with the thousands of people, you got to remember that, it's not the number of fires. It's the number of medical calls. Mm-hmm. And that goes up proportionally. When you add 4,000 or 5,000 people over a number of years, that comes with so many extra calls. You got to staff them. And that's what Chief Nelson is looking at is, okay, for this year, for next year, I need to start making some progress. It would be nice to get 4 new firefighters pronto. But he said, if we can't, can we at least have steps? And we couldn't promise him anything because we hadn't met as a committee. We still haven't put together a budget that we can live with. And we got to talk to the select board to see their input, because they went before the select board. And my understanding is the select board was all for adding the people if we can afford it. Well, we all are. Now the question is, what can we afford? Same thing with Chief Tassino. I mean, he's doing a heck of a lot with the same force he had when Milford was thousands of people smaller. And unfortunately, when it comes down to adding thousands of people, the 99% people who are good don't cause a lot of problems. The 1% that are issues, less than optimal, when you add 5,000 new people, you're going to get 1% of 5,000 that are troublemakers. So, as Chris said, this is a tough year. Any other questions?
General government, I talked with Ricky Villani today. Obviously, with the delay of the selectmen's meeting till Thursday, we delayed our meeting of talking about anything because there wasn't much to talk about until he met with the selectmen on Thursday. So after Thursday, we'll set up a general government meeting to meet with Mr. Villani and the general government summit
And there was
committee.
one other issue that I got a call on late today. We were going to talk about recording and the OWL recording device, and the open meeting law forbids us from doing it. We did not post it. I thought we could cover it under subcommittee reports, but I was reminded that on specific topics, number one, IT comes under the guidance management of the select board. So they want to lead that effort. And having us talk about it, they thought would be confusing. And number two, well, we did not post anything about recording, so that would violate the open meeting law. When you have your meeting on Thursday with the select board, if they choose to discuss it, then we can go from there. But right now, we're on hold, because I'm not in favor of an open meeting law violation. Sorry.
Yeah, I've had them. They're not good.
Anything else? Well, since 2003, when Paul Revere helped us through our bind, we haven't had a year as challenging as this year, but I believe this year and next year are going to be tough, but we'll get through it. And again, keep in mind, this is all about step one, because everything we do now affects what we're going to have to face in 2 or 3 years when we get $7 million at least of incremental expense added for interest.
No question.
Any questions? Everybody's been so quiet tonight.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion to adjourn is not debatable. Roll call. Motion to adjourn. Lauren?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Joycey?
Yes.
Chris?
Happy Valentine's Day, yes.
Vinnie?
Yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned.